It's going to exponentially help you in growing your business. Once you establish those two things, validate the market, have your first 10 customers, you can create a 6-month runway in your finances, mitigating risk through the right paperwork and signing up in the right places. And today we're going to be talking about look bigger. So you can imagine my personal background is in design. And so how hard it was for me to suppress that a little bit and do these important steps first. So highly, highly recommend doing the important these first steps of validating, testing out the sales process, understanding your runway, how long you have to survive. Then you can establish your branding, develop your website. 5 is, this is a big one, levers and gauges. This is the class actually I'm giving at in this group next week, talking about levers and gauges, talking about digital marketing, how to grow, how to scale, in growth hacking. 6, build a team. 7, leave a thriving legacy. So again, today we're going to be talking about looking bigger. So this is what we're going to cover today, talking about telling a big story, thinking about branding beyond a logo. Certainly a logo is important, but it's not as important as the brand in totality. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about websites also. And they should be more than just displays for explaining your company, and talk about reputation a little bit. So in the chat, reading some of these notes here. Very cool. Awesome to hear. Would you tell me which one that you're most excited about? How to develop story, how to develop a visual brand, or how to the approach a website? And so which one is most interesting to you? I'll try to talk less on the things that people don't have interest in, and then talk more on the things that people are interested in.
From the chat, it's telling a big story.
That's great. So I'll spend a little bit more time there, and then I'll, also just touch on the visual brand. So brand, let's talk about story. So I love this idea. Actually, I'll show this. I love this quote from Steve Jobs. He said, "The smallest company in the world can look as large as the largest company in the world on the web." He said that in '95, which I think is pretty visionary, right? The internet was just kind of being born, and he's thinking to himself, wow, the web just levels the playing field. And I wish I had this, in the 80s when he was starting Apple. And this is essentially what we get to do for clients today. Is I love seeing, 2 people in an office like this look like they own a building in Boston. That is the kind of the bigness that you can get with brand. And the way that you do that is to tell the right story. I believe tell the right story first, and then establish the look so that you look credible, you look like you deserve to be at the table. And then certainly your website's going to be a primary place to represent those things. So one of my favorite exercises in branding. So let's talk about story. Has everybody gone to these 2 stores, Aldi and Trader Joe's? I see some nodding heads. All right, that's great. So which one do you prefer? Let me know in the chat. Trader Joe's or Aldi? And I'll Trader Joe's, Aldi. Oh, interesting. So I think of Trader Joe's in the same category as Whole Foods, and I think of Aldi in the same category as Price Rate for some reason. Great value, pretty good food, but Whole Foods is on another level. Well, you may know where I'm going with this. Aldi and Trader Joe's are actually the same company. I don't know if you know that. So they all these companies started as a company called Aldi, and they started in, I believe, Germany. So it was post World War II Germany. The father had a grocery store, Aldi. The sons took over. They were very business savvy, and so they took over and grew very quickly in Europe. And the sons had a disagreement actually about cigarettes, so whether they should sell cigarettes in the stores or not. And one, I always forget which one did and which one didn't. I believe it was Nord. So they split Aldi Nord and Aldi Sud, Aldi North and South. And that's how they split Europe on a map, literally a line. They drew a line and said, you get everybody in the North and I'll take everybody in the South. And that worked for a little while until they went overseas to the United States and Canada and said, what are we going to do in the United States? well, one of the brothers said, well, we'll both have United States, and I'll rebrand. And so one is called Aldi and the other one is called Trader Joe's. And they started very, very similar, but as they grew, Trader Joe's added something that I think is really powerful. They added a story. They added a story to their brand, their process, their offering. If you've ever been in a Trader Joe's, the first time you go in, it's a little jarring because people are yelling like, man overboard, help is on the way. And they have this kind of culture of singing, and they wear Hawaiian shirts, and it feels, it's not just a grocery store. It's not just shelves when you go to a Trader Joe's. There's a story behind it. I believe the story is that Joe was this mercantile trader, and you're inside Joe's world, and he's bringing you the best products from all over the world and things like that. In reality, the business process is the same. They're bringing you products that are white labeled, and bringing you the best products. So there's not 10 different raisins or chocolate covered raisins. There's one chocolate covered raisin that's branded as Trader Joe's, and they have been doing very, very well. So story is very powerful. Robert McKee said storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world, which is good. I believe Robert McKee wrote the book Storytelling. That's another one you should go check out. But from a business perspective, this is really interesting. A great business author named Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. Let me know if in the chat if you've read Start With Why or like this. There's a great YouTube video. If you Google Start With Why, it's about 15 minutes long, and it'll give you kind of a bigger impression. But the principle here is that all the companies of the world know what they do. They know what they sell. They sell shoes, they sell shoelaces, they sell computers, they sell stretchy pants, they sell whatever, right? And when you are focused, most companies are focused on the what. They're focused on the features, and they tell people, oh, I sell shoes or shoelaces or computers or stretchy pants. Good companies will talk about the how. They'll talk about service. They'll talk about process. They'll talk about legacy, how long they've been doing it, customer service, etc. The best companies start with why. So it's not just a bottle of water. It is, I care about your thirst. That's why I found this 1,000-year-old spring. How? And that's why this bottle of water costs $8.95. And don't you want to buy it now? And before, if I just said, hey, this is a bottle of water for $8.95, you would have said, $8.95, that's crazy. But all of a sudden, it doesn't seem so crazy when I say, well, I'm the person who cares about your thirst. I'm not Dasani. I'm not this big major company. I'm that individual that cares. Apple and Nike have done this so well. It doesn't matter what they put in the last ring. They can come out with a new product tomorrow and people would line up to buy that product because they've sold the why. They sold this culture. They've sold a philosophy. And small businesses, I believe, can absolutely take advantage of this idea, this thought that you should really pitch the why. You should really hone in on the why. Hope that makes sense. Let me pause there. Any questions about that? Some nodding heads. All right, great. We'll try to do an exercise too of your company at the end, or if you have questions about that. So here's what it looks like practically speaking. Here you are. Most companies, they think everybody can be their customer. This is usually a wrong strategy. Not everybody is your customer. You have a very specific story that resonates with a very specific audience. The question is, how do we get your story to that specific audience? And we'll talk about that more next week in our growth hacking and marketing segment. But that story needs to exist somewhere. So usually the website is the place where that story resonates. And the story, the website is just 4 walls. It's like a building. Nothing happens in a building until there's stuff in it, right? So it's really about the content, things like video that engages. So this is how the story is developed. And one more book. I don't think I actually need to add this to the list here. There's a great book called Story Brand by Donald Miller. Talks about how the story should really be about. Most companies talk about themselves, and your story should be about your customer for businesses. The most powerful story is that when you can start to introduce the story as being the guide for the customer that you have. How does this work for folks offering a service? we do this all the time. We're a service provider, obviously. And so similarly, again, our story is our mission. I started with it to see full potential realized, right? It's not, we're the full potential realized company. We're not the website company. That's one of the ways that we help people establish their full potential. I hope that makes sense. Great. All right. I'm going to skip this here. Don't have time to really break this down, but your brand, you can also think about it as your promise. So how that story becomes a promise for those individuals. Most companies strive to be admirable, and but you should focus on what makes you unique. I believe this is from Zig or Zag. Yeah, Marty Neumeier. So let's do a little exercise. We want to talk about how to position yourselves in your story that makes you sound unique, that connects to exactly the need that people have. So let me show you an example of a tool that we use called the positioning statement. I'm going to read the positioning statement. You tell me who this company is. We are the only motorcycle manufacturer that makes big, loud motorcycles for macho guys and macho wannabes, mostly in the United States, who want to join a gang of cowboys in an era of decreasing personal freedom.
Harley Davidson?
Harley Davidson. Of course, it's Harley Davidson, right? So how can it be anybody else but Harley Davidson? They've done their positioning statement. Their brand is so powerful that I can read a few sentences and you know exactly who it is. But really interesting, you can't put anybody else in this line. They've really done a great job at distinguishing the what, how, who, where, why, and when. And really interesting, the punchline in the statement is the why, right? There are other motorcycle manufacturers. There are other motorcycle manufacturers that make big, loud motorcycles, right? Even ones that sell to macho guys and macho wannabes. The key, the why that they focus on, they want to join a gang of cowboys. What product can we create? And that's why I think Harley Davidson's done a good job of creating. I think they're one of the companies that have the most success selling branded material. I know Harley owners who wear like Harley earrings and Harley shirts. It's like their only wardrobe is Harley Davidson stuff, because the why is so core to them, right? They want to join a gang of cowboys. And today there's fewer horses to ride, and it's not very safe to do that on streets. But I can buy a Harley Davidson and feel like I'm joining a gang of cowboys, and that's the kind of core that they get back to. Make sense? Okay, great. So now that we have our positioning, we know the value of story, we know that where story is going to execute, we know the mentality that we should have, we know that it should be unique. We have a tool to use to make it unique. Let's talk about competitive analysis. And let's talk about brand spectrum. This is a tool that we use at Figmints to help think about where you land visually speaking. And obviously the story and the visuals go together, right? Because when I read this is the story, but you close your eyes, you can feel the wind in your face. You smell the leather, you know, it's darker colors, right? And that's because Harley spent a lot of money to establish those things, but visual just naturally kind of comes through in following up through the story. So brand spectrum, I believe brands live on a spectrum. You could do multiple spectrums, but the main spectrum that we use is on a scale 1 to 10. The numbers have no significance. It's just left and right, really. On the left side, where you have 1, you have warm, friendly, inviting, soft. Those are the pros of being a 1. The cons of being a 1 might be childish, unprofessional, cute. I don't know. Maybe that's good for your brand. On the opposite side, you have hip, cool, sexy, tech driven, and maybe that's a pro or con. But the cons of being a 10 are cold, uninviting, icy, right? So that is a brand spectrum, and you can't be a 5. Let me know in the chat where you think your brand lands, what number you think it is. very interested to hear where these brands are, where your brands are. While you're typing that in, I'll tell you 7. That's interesting. Yeah, usually I hear lots of 3s and 7s. It's like, well, I'm kind of on the left side. I don't want to be too on the left side, and we're kind of on the right side. We're not too on the right side. And if I didn't tell you not to be a 5, you may have said 5 because everybody wants to be somewhere in the middle of those two things. Like, here's a great example of different brands who are established on the spectrum. Life is Good is one of my favorite examples of a 1. I think their tagline is "Gone Fishing." Their cartoons is their graphic kind of visual language, handwritten typeface, handwritten font. All the way on the opposite side, Uber, great example of a 10. They've kind of outwardly said if we didn't have to have people, we wouldn't. It's frustrating to have drivers and people because it messes things up. We're going to have self-driving taxis soon, we promise. And you open the app, it's cool, slick, minimal. You need glasses to read everything. It's tiny, black and white, right? Guess what? Everybody on this page makes a lot of money, right? So being a 1, those are the most memorable. If you can be as far to one side as possible, they usually are kind of automatically really memorable. But what you should really be thinking about is, how do you fare against your competitors? Where are you on the competitive analysis? Redo this exercise with just your industry. Happy to do that with, if we have enough time, we'll try to do this exercise with somebody. But I would invite you, take a screenshot, take this, start to plot your competitors on this page, and you'll see automatically a gap that happens. Oh, interesting. There's nobody, on the left side of the spectrum in my field. And this happened, if you look at Apple's a great example of this, and computers. Apple, I would say, is a 7 or an 8, right? This is, by the way, pretty subjective. But I would say Apple's like a 7 or an 8. But if you just look at computer companies, Apple would be far on the left side of the spectrum, right? So you almost kind of recast this spectrum just for computer companies. It's so ubiquitous, we almost forget that Apple, when they came out, a computer company, a technology company, named themselves after a fruit, after the 3 most popular fruits in the world, right? So, and there's a lot of different reasons for that, but there's companies like Kodak, IBM, big, stern, beige, monolithic companies. And then here's this think different Apple rainbow company. Very, very different. They were truly the most unique in their space, in their category. And they've evolved and changed, over the years. But really interesting because people can own that space. And you kind of see that difference when you talk about different industries, like coffee is a great example. Coffee. There's not a lot of coffee shops that are too cold and uninviting, right? But Starbucks is pretty close to that. They're exclusive, right? It's a club. It's a third place. Dunkin', definitely left of them. Hardworking, gritty, pink and orange is a color palette. Most airlines are on the right side of the spectrum, right? Glassy, we got this under control. High end. Southwest, their logo is a heart. Very left side of the spectrum. So it's interesting just to look at these different brands in your category, in your space. Do that exercise. Try to establish yourself where you're unique. So start with why. Stay unique. Memorable is better than clever. Tell your story where your audience is. Connect your story to your audience. Your story should be about your audience, your client, your customers. They're the heroes of your story. Sorry to break the news to you. So we spent half the time talking about story. We're going to move on to visual and talk about web. Sound good? See some nodding. Okay, great. So visual branding. Love this. Spend a good chunk of my days in the professional world as a designer. I don't get to do a lot of design stuff anymore, but love it. One of my heroes, Saul Bass, said, let's talk about logos. Logos are a graphic extension of internal realities of a company. So one of the heroes of logo design, I believe he did Bell Atlantic. He did lots of amazing brands, Girl Scouts, I believe, also. The best logos are simple. They are, you don't have a logo. Oh, interesting. So I think it's okay. Well, no, I don't think it's okay to not have a logo. I think you should establish a logo. And I'm going to teach you some ways that you can do it really, really inexpensively. So these are micro businesses. I know where you're at. I'm going to try to give you as much value as possible. Another great quote: logo doesn't make the brand makes the logo. So you have a logo within you. We just need to chisel away the parts and to get at it. I love this quote because I wrote it, logo expert. So give me attribution. If you want some inspiration, check out this website. It's called Brand New, by a company called Under Consideration. Really great examples of before and afters and logos, and you get to hear kind of the most pontificated brand storytelling in our industry, I think. But great logos. It was one of my favorite ones. City of Melbourne did this rebrand. This is their old logo. A little complex in my opinion. Complex in a better and simplified and more beautiful way, I think, is this what I call a maximalized mark. Love how the mark here can be utilized in these different kind of tones, these different shades. You can almost automatically see in these second and third examples here that this is obviously part of the brand, but the logo is not apparent, right? There's no logo on this page or this page, but that poster immediately makes you think of that Melbourne branding because the system is created. So there you have it. A mark of a great visual brand is a system, not a stamp, not just a logo. Again, that's a quote from me. I have a lot to say about logos, a lot to say about brands. But you're saying, James, branding is so expensive. I got quoted tens of thousands of dollars from doing a brand exercise from an agency, and that frustrated me. And so that's why I don't have a logo, right? There you go. No money for micro businesses. So my recommendation for a low budget logo, if you're interested, is to consider something called a word mark. You probably have seen one and you just didn't know it. There are lots of companies who use just their name as their logo. So you probably do have a logo. You probably have something on your business card, right? And you've chosen a typeface that suits you or fits you. So I would recommend, if you are very, very bootstrapped, you have no budget for spending any dollars on a logo, try looking up a great font and then setting your font in, setting your name of the business in that font. Great website for this is dafont, dafont.com. They have lots of free free typefaces, free fonts out there. And if you, I believe there's a tool here. You can add your name, and then you can see like what your name would look like in those different fonts. So these two, Beach Party and Silent Asia, they have very different tones, very different feelings, and you can own that font. Pick a color, pick a font, and all of a sudden that becomes your brand. Check out this one, F. Menard, I believe is the way you pronounce this. Not a lot going on. It's a circle with F. Menard on it. It is perfectly typeset, which is awesome. But they've established a brand with just a word mark, which is beautiful. And they're owning that color, that red color, which is vibrant, different, hopefully, in their competitive landscape. I have a logo that I love, but it doesn't include business name. Does that matter? Well, it should probably somewhere. So if your logo is like this, especially for micro businesses, you probably don't have enough money to get your mark remembered in the names or in the thoughts of people. So this swoosh is very recognizable for us. Obviously, it's Nike. But if you didn't spend the advertising dollars that Nike did, nobody would know who this is, right? So you probably always want to incorporate your name with your mark and just get that repetition and that brand awareness out there. Hope that makes sense. Some really great tools that I have for you. So as an agency, we've helped broker and negotiate lots of cool rates, lots of discounts for the startups that we work with. So if you use these links, I try to make them as simple as possible. Figmints.com, fig like the fruit, mints like the candy, MINTS /PSPrint. It's one of my favorite printing services. They have lots of different materials, business cards, and I believe there's a special offer if you use this link. Canva is another great one. They're a simple tool if you don't have any design chops. They have lots of different themes, templates. You can just drop your logo. They even have a logo creator that you can create your own logo. And if you want to spend a little bit of time and tweak things around for your logo, BrandCrowd is really great. Today, there's actually what we call AI designed logos out there. So you can type in your name and you'll search different icons, and you can, I think for $50, something pretty inexpensive, you can download free logo. You can get started for free. So they all have different special offers. Highly recommend these to check out as well if you're bootstrapping or have a very, very small budget. Cool. So graphically speaking, keep it simple. Don't stress about the logo, Anne-Marie, but definitely start to work on it. It's easier probably than you thought, and just make enough to get by. You just, for a lot of micro businesses, you probably only need enough logo for a business card or a website, and a one-page website probably will do you just fine for now. What can you expect? What font is used in this slide? I believe this is Gotham. That is our typeface that we use. I'll just double check. Am I right? Yeah, Gotham medium. This is Jeffrey telling us to DFY stands for done for you. So if you were to hire an agency, James, this is great. I don't have any time. I need somebody to do this for me, and I'm willing to pay. You make a little bit of money. I think it's time. Let's do it. What does it cost to do a logo? Here's what I think it should cost. This is what we charge as an agency. I always equate costs to hiring a junior, mid-level, or an agency, or like an executive. And so I think you can get a junior designer to do a logo design for you for $500 to $1,000. We have logo design processes that we do for similar costs, but they're very, very simple. I'd say the mid-level, when you get serious about your branding, somewhere between the 2 to 10K range. 10K, you're starting to get really serious about branding, thinking about story, thinking about what that visual look is going to be. And the biggest branding projects we've done are 70, 90K, something like that. I've seen branding projects quoted at $1 million. I don't know what those are, to be honest with you. So I apologize, I can't give you more information on that. But I think these are fair rates for what you can expect to bring on an agency for. All right, hope that's helpful. I'll try to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so talking about web. Hopefully some of you, or I think some of you, I think this will be helpful. Web is just, I think most people find us as a website design firm because web is just the intersection of everything. It's like where your brand exists, where your marketing is going to live, how you talk about yourself. So it's very important. Today, the first thing I want to talk about, excuse me, is mobile. So if your site is not mobile responsive, you probably have a very, very old site. Highly recommend that you focus on mobile. If I were to ask you can probably see it in the slides here. If I were to ask you what percentage of traffic comes from mobile, let me know in the chat what you think it is. What percentage of all traffic done is mobile versus 90? 90 is a lot. I would have said 50 is a lot. The right answer is 70. Holy cow, that's a lot of traffic coming from mobile. And this is so funny. Most people think about website design, they think about a website, a browser-based website, when really the majority of the people that are coming to your site are probably not coming from a browser. They're coming from a mobile experience, or they're starting from social, or they're starting, they're linking to you from blogs. We'll talk more about that next week. But holy cow, this is it's a paradigm shift for how you should be thinking about websites. You should almost be thinking about your mobile experience before you think about your browser experience. Most people don't. So great little graphic here. The best way to do this is through something called responsive design. So you have one experience that adapts to whatever browser size that you have. If you've heard that term, responsive design, that's what we're talking about. That the browser, that the web experience, that the viewing experience will change based on the size of your browser. You can actually try this if you resize a window. And I get all the time, James, it breaks when I resize it. It's like, don't worry, refresh the page. It's like, yeah, but what about when somebody's trying to resize? Nobody's resizing the window while they're looking at your website, right? Only if they're checking to see if you have a responsive site. Very, very few, 0.001% will be doing that. So most people care about what it looks like on mobile and scale up from there. This last couple parts that I'll talk about is for web, of course, this goes back to story. Your website goes back to your story because, again, website's just four walls. What is it without images and text? Basically nothing, right? So I'm showing off the City of Providence website. This is our work. We did the City of Providence website. If you're a Providence native or if you live in Providence, hopefully you found the website easier to use than the previous version. I know there's some issues with it still, but it's not our problem right now. This is the original site design that we had for the site. I thought it was great. Big imagery, just getting to the main points. And the site, through many rounds of revisions, I think about 6 or 7 rounds of revisions. Today, you'll see something more that looks like this. Design by committee is not great, but I think it still looks good. I think it's very accessible. And you want to think about things like hierarchy, very important. In this page, we wanted you to feel welcome. I think the imagery does that. And then the announcements became the highlight. And then this event, I think that hierarchy, where your eye jumps to kind of right away, is 1, 2, 3. And that was by design. But I think we wanted the mayor's name. We wanted the mayor to be highlighted a little bit more, or they wanted the mayor's name to be highlighted a little bit more. And they wanted this call to action, the I want to get to that usability quickly. So your eye probably goes to something like 1, 2, 3, something like that. And so depends on what you need, what you want, the KPIs that you're trying to achieve. Again, we'll talk about that next week. So really think through content photography. I like this exercise. Everybody knows Apple's website. I get a lot of requests for, James, I want our website to look like Apple. Well, guess what? If you take out the pictures and the words from Apple, you have a black and white, you have nothing, right? So it is a shell. And so spending more time on the copy, spending more time on imagery, spending more time on the content that's going to be on your site is highly valuable for what your site's going to be. So there are lots of great tools out there that you can use. Let me just jump to that and show you. This has changed over time. There are tools like Wix and Squarespace, really simple website, do-it-yourself creation tools. Everything in the middle is actually WordPress. Actually, I think WordPress is a really good tool. It's just a little bit more complicated than point and click. So I don't recommend it to people who have no technical ability. But we use WordPress as a framework, and we build off of it. If you have an e-commerce site, let me know. Out of the people here, let me know how many of you are e-commerce folks. E-commerce is a very different process. I explain it like this: a website is like having a car, or I explain it with houses more. So let me use houses. So a simple website, a brochure website, is like a single family 3-bedroom colonial, right? It's like, oh, everybody kind of pictures what that is in their mind. An app is like a museum. And I don't know what kind of museum comes into your mind, but there's lots of different ones out there. And or it's a mall. And a mall could be, I don't know, could have lots of different shapes and lots of different stuff going on, right? So it may not surprise you that that apps could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to build, whereas a theme website, brochure website could be very inexpensive to build. E-commerce is right in the middle, and e-commerce is almost like the simplest version of an app. It's like a strip mall, right? But there is a lot of complexity that goes into it. Just the idea of adding something to a cart, adding something in a cart to a wish list, setting up payment systems, really complicated. So what I typically recommend, Shopify is my kind of go-to e-commerce platform that I like to use. But actually, Squarespace, Wix is okay. Squarespace, if you have one product or two products, you can probably get away with selling it on Squarespace. They do a really good job of making it really easy. And WordPress, again, really simple platform, but you can get yourself in trouble fairly quickly. So I would stick with Squarespace for Shopify. Those themes are probably the ones that you want to use. And we have some great some offers here. So check out figmints.com/Wix, figmints.com/Squarespace, or figmints.com/WP, and that'll bring you to either resources or specific offers for these groups. I should add Shopify here. We also have a link to Shopify. All right. One more thing that I'll mention. I talked about it a little bit, but when we talked about that hierarchy, what people are looking at, we're talking about the experience of your actual users. So that is something called UI UX. A lot of my thinking for UI UX is derived from this book, Don't Make Me Think, by Steve Krug. Great book. Basically, the punchline of this book is that you want to make it as simple as possible. It's not because people are dumb. It's because they just don't have time. You don't want to have to teach them how to use your website or how to engage with you at all. You want to make it just seamless. And I would say, my take for UI UX, user interface, user experience, is it's all about the user, right? Most people forget that. It's people think it's about making it pretty or winning an award or selling more stuff, which I guess benefits you and them, but really think about how the user interacts with it, the outcomes that you want to see. I like this quote. User interface is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not that good. So I have a separate class just talking about UI UX. We can dig way deep into that, but I will save you from that for now. And yeah, when thinking about the internet's just to the internet's, just thinking about mobile first content is king. The words, the photographs, the video is in my opinion, the best form of content you can have. Know your role and know your customer's role. Pick your poison when it comes to the apps or the technology that you're going to use. There's a lot of them out there. Happy to answer any questions in here, but just be ready to be adaptable because it's going to change on you again in 6 months, guaranteed. Last offer that I will send over to you or shoot you. This is a great tool that I've found. I'm just giving it away, giving some secrets away. We use this internally as an agency. There is this amazing tool called Floxy. Let me know if you've heard of Floxy. This is of the family of tools out there like Design Pickle or Penji or some of these others that you get all you can eat design services for a flat low rate every month. So I believe their monthly rates are something like $300 to $400. They start there and then they go up. But they have design services, copywriting services, development services. So very inexpensive. This would be way less expensive than hiring an agency. It does take a little bit of effort and know-how to know what you want to get done. But if you're just looking for someone to get some design work for you, especially early on, it's really nice. And they have a free rate, and this is a discount offer. So if you go to figmints.com/flock, C-S-Y, flock, F-L-O-C-K-S-Y, there's a great offer in there, a discounted rate for your first month. That's it. I wanted to leave 15 minutes for Q&A. So hope that was helpful. Let me know. I just want to open up for questions and yeah, walk through it with you. Let me see what I missed here. Launching through WooCommerce. Now I'm Shopify. WooCommerce is great. It is my second favorite tool. Again, there's enough complexity to get you into trouble. I think you can make fewer mistakes in Shopify. But if you have less than 10 SKUs, I say Wix and Squarespace is the best. If you have less than 100 SKUs, WooCommerce is pretty solid. If you have more than 100 SKUs, Shopify is almost definitely the right way to go. That's one way to look at it. Shopify is the most expensive. Wix and Squarespace you can do yourself. WooCommerce too. It's hard to for the technically challenged, it's difficult to try to do yourself, but you can get by. It's not impossible. It's like anything else. There's a learning curve. I hope this is helpful. Is this helpful? Let me know in the chats. Nodding. Okay, great.
Got a quick question. Do you have any recommendations for a service-only based business?
Yeah, can you be more specific about recommendations? What kind of like brand recommendations or web recommendations or
Branding.
branding recommendations for service-based businesses? What industry? What kind of service, Lisa? Do you want to come off mute and?
Sure. Yeah. Same as Shandy. So I do coaching too. So I have
Oh yeah.
and I also have multiple things that I do. So it's always hard to get it niched down. So I do consulting for corporations and coaching for individuals.
Cool.
Always hard to brand story when you got two things going
on. Coaching for what's the difference between the individuals and the businesses?
Well, I'm not coaching for corporations. I don't do coaching in corporations. I do people change management. So I do change management programs for companies, and then I do individual coaching, career coaching for people.
Do you do it under your name, or is it a business
name?
No,
my company is Mindful Transformations. So I do transformation work, and I added mindful, which also through, I thought it was going to be a big turnoff to companies. It's actually turning out to be, they like it right now.
Yeah, mindfulness is big. We've made the next 6 months of our at Figmints. We made mindfulness the kind of theme. Every month we're talking about a different mindfulness area. So that's great. Do you have a website now? Is it mindfulness dash transformations?
Yeah, I had to do mindful dash transformations. I had trouble buying a website, but it's mindful dash transformations. So yep, it came with my coaching practice. So does a lot of things. Probably needs to be fixed. Maybe you guys can help me with that.
Sure.
It does a lot of things on the back end. I had to put all the content in, but on the back end, it does a lot of things, and it's hosted. So
great. And it's I'm looking at your site now. It looks clean, professional. I think the butterfly is kind of a natural place that you would go. It is used often, though. If you look at other mindfulness coaches, if you just typed in mindfulness coach, you'll probably see multiple butterflies out there. But not bad imagery. I think the logo looks good. Website looks pretty clean, professional. So what exactly is the question?
What's from that branding standpoint? I guess it's messaging. Like, so, I have to do the coaching off to one page. Is it better to have should I have two websites for two different types of businesses? I guess that's a good question. Like one for coaching for that and one because I have to have different pages, so if you were looking for individual coaching, you have to click on coaching, but the main landing page I did for companies, I didn't know which to do first. It's hard.
Yeah, interesting. For micro businesses, I would usually recommend that you focus on one. When you're and branding is not your specialty or marketing is not your specialty, then your energy should be focused in one area. I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say that that you would provide services for both individuals and businesses. So housing both of those under the Mindful Transformations page, I think is okay. It used to be 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, that the homepage is the most trafficked page of your website. Today, it's actually not. Sometimes ours is, I think homepage is 10th, 15th, something like that. The most trafficked page of our site is strictly through the blog. So we're marketing our blog so much. We're talking about things so much. We share our articles. All of our email efforts, they should be going not to your homepage. Almost none of your marketing efforts should be going to your homepage. They should drop you on a very specific ask or a very specific offer or a very specific thing. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about this next week, but the stories. That's all to say, I'm not too worried about having both of those things incorporated into your website. I don't think you're alienating the other by talking about them. So practical solutions to effectively lead people through change, increase engagement and financial success, implement key initiatives with minimal resistance. I think it's pretty good. Most people fall into the trap of talking about themselves. Like, here are our programs. That would be their hero. But you're talking about the key pain points, which is great. So I
Good,
want
it
to
went to me
effectively,
for years to work on.
yeah, I want to effectively lead people.
And take a lot of your webinars. I've taken some from you, so thank you. You helped me with
Oh,
that.
thanks, Lisa. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Increase
also, I went to
engagement.
culinary at Johnson and Wales too, so I have
Nice.
that.
Yeah, we should start a club of people who don't use their culinary degrees.
Yeah. Well, that was pretty big, pretty big.
Implement key initiatives with minimal resistance. Yeah, I think that's a big one. I would love on your business page. That's primarily business, right? So when you're
Mhm.
on your business page, you should be thinking about which of those key initiatives, those keywords, because I'm not searching for, think about, put yourself in the shoes of your audience. I'm not searching for how do I implement my key initiatives, right? So there might be a little bit more colloquialness that you get with your language. How do I deal with layoffs? It's huge right now. Lots of companies are going through that. That's a big change that happens in the company. That's a key initiative that you have. Here are the 10 types of resistance I'm going to see you'll see when you do layoffs in your company. You're uniquely qualified to write that sort of thought leadership. It's really helpful content for that specific right audience. Yeah, I hope this is helpful.
Yes, very helpful. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Great.
I think there was someone else who had something in the chat too, so I want
Yeah,
to be mindful
sure.
of that. How's that? Thank you. Thanks, James. That was very helpful.
Yeah, my pleasure.
There's a question from Shandy Hanna. From a branding standpoint, as a coach, I've heard some biz consultants say use your name, and other ones say use what you do. Do you have an opinion on that?
That is a great question. I would use your name if your name is memorable, interesting, and maybe if you've written a book. Otherwise, I would not use your name. That's very general, but in the long term, you kind of go two paths. I feel like I could, this is like a separate class I haven't created yet, or a philosophy that I have about all businesses should consider the mental exercise of whether you want to be rich or you want to be king. So this idea that the paths diverge, they almost always kind of converge at the end. But do you want to make money? Or do you want to be famous? There's a lot of different ways that you can parse this out. But if you want recognition for yourself, if you want to grow yourself as the brand, obviously you use your name, as long as your name isn't difficult to say, spell, etc. And then, but it also has to be unique, because it can't be John Smith Consulting. Doesn't sound very, very interesting for some reason. Sorry, John Smiths out there. And then you're establishing a brand. If you want to be bigger, if you want to be a company, if you want to have a system in place, if you want to be able to replace yourself or be able to sell this business, obviously building a brand under a pseudonym or a brand name is going to be more important. So you have to make that decision yourself. So I'm always a fan of the latter. That's why everything that I do is under these pseudonyms or names. But I like naming and I like branding, and I could do marketing. So that's not that hard for me. Sometimes it's easier to establish your work under your name because very fewer people are going to have it. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons there. Shandy, do you want to come off mute and just let me know if that's helpful, or if there's another specific question about coaching?
Hey, James. Yeah, I think that's helpful. I would say for sure. I mean, I've never met another Shandy in real life, so I think that I have that advantage. And yeah, that's what I've kind of like thought. I don't really intend to grow a company that I like sell or anything. And I want to be open to the type of people that I coach and the way that I coach, which is why I'm kind of more drawn to just using the name as opposed to using like a business, focused title.
Yeah, lots of consultants work under their own name for similar reasons as that. Hey, I don't plan on having 100 employees or even 10 employees. I just want to grow this this business that I have, this consulting business that I have, and I think that's reasonable. That's fair. So yeah, it sounds like you're on that path, and I agree with you. I like actually that your name's not difficult to say. It has kind of an interesting spelling, so I tend to not forget, that. And all of the same rules apply, though. The story, it's very easy to get tripped up into telling the story about you. Really, your story should be about your customers on the consulting side. What are their struggles? What are they dealing with? How are you going to come alongside them to help them with those?
Yeah, I think the thing that's interesting about that as a coach is that like there's kind of an overlap in some ways, right? Like what my story kind of connects to my client stories a lot in terms of like where they've been at and where they want to go. But I think that's a really good tip for sure. I wrote that down when you said that earlier.
Yeah. Highly recommend checking out StoryBrand. Really good. You are not Luke Skywalker in your of your story. You are Obi-Wan, right? So they do connect. They're very related. They're very connected. But it's the guide, not the hero.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, James.
Yeah, my pleasure. We have 1 more minute. I can hang out for one more question, or Kim, do you want to wrap up?
I think it's a great point to wrap up. I don't think we have any other questions at this time.
Awesome.
I wanted to thank James for coming today and being a part of this part 1 series, telling a story through your brand. Please be sure to register for next week's session, which is growth hacking, which is part 2 of the series. And that will be great. His contact information into the chat. So if you wanted to email him, and I've recorded the session today so that I can send that to everyone, if that's okay with you, James.
Yep. Sounds great.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And as always, if you'd like to find us on LinkedIn, we are the Micro Business Association of New England. And our website is Maine Online. James, did you have any closing remarks?
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Kim, for inviting me again. Looking forward to seeing you all next week, hopefully. And yeah, send me an email, James at Figmints, fig like the fruit, mints like the candy, if you have any questions. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye now.